What's up, Diablo 4 players? So let's get right into it. What is the best class to play in Season 4? This is going to be a triple tier list in one video. So to explain why I want to do it this way, some people like to play in different sections of the game. Some people are more of a casual audience. They just want to go ahead and maybe play the new Helltide, play their favorite build, and they want to know, like, is this build viable? And some other people are interested in just doing the pit, right? That's another metric that we have to factor in. And then on top of that, the last one that I want to go over is the 99% of the player base. What are they mostly interested in doing if they want to kind of experience what the season has to offer? So let's start off with the most casual, which is going to be the open world, the brand new Helltides. Maybe you want to kind of try your luck at some of the Uber bosses, not necessarily maybe the tormented ones, because those ones require a lot more time investment, and usually those are more for players that are more interested in spending a little bit more time. But so for the super casual audience here, as far as the tier list goes for the best class here, honestly, if you're just interested in doing Helltides and open world content, every single class is going to be great for this. There's not a class that's like, you can't do the open world content, you can't do the nightmare dungeons, or again, the regular Uber bosses. It's totally fine. You can handle all forms of content. So I want to get that out of the way really quick, and that's like a really short thing. Maybe your favorite build in Season 0 was the Bone Spear Necromancer or the Twisting Blade Rogue, and you're hopping back into the game because you hear a lot of good things about Season 4. And that's because Season 4 is really awesome. And there's a lot of people coming back into the game always asking me, hey, I played in Season 1 or Season 0. I really like this build. Can I play it in Season 4? And the answer is you can play whatever you want. It's totally going to dunk on the game's content because the brand new tempering system makes your characters way more powerful. But there are definitely going to be builds that are much better. So to kind of look at this, what I'm about to show you is the brand new ladder for the pit. So this is the brand new endgame content that is best as a metric to see how good a build actually can perform. And the reason why I'm going to use this instead of the Gauntlet, which is the official Diablo one that we have in-game, the Gauntlet is not like hard content at all. So I'm going to be using this as sort of a reference. And I say sort of a reference because they have this note here that the Elixir of Holy Bolts is banned. What you're looking at is the max roll leaderboard that does have some prizes, but for the most part, this is a really great tool that we have to kind of see how good is a certain class performing. And what you're looking at right here is the tier. How high can it go? If you played Diablo 3, this is similar to like a Greater Rift clear. So you'll see there is a pretty big difference in some of the classes, specifically the difference between a 135 here and let's say a 119. Every 10 that you go up is basically twice as difficult. Keep in mind, take it with a grain of salt. There's other things that you'll have to factor in. There is kind of luck with the pit system because it's basically a Greater Rift. And I want to give you guys a update to this, and this is one of the best things to actually look at how powerful can a class actually be. So to look at these numbers over here, the only one that is significantly further behind is going to be the Druid. Now, the Necromancer is kind of in a weird spot because I'm using this as kind of a reference, and I say kind of because the Necromancer actually benefits from the brand new seasonal item, the Elixir of Holy Bolts, more than any of the classes because the minions do crazy amounts of damage when you have this popped. So I'm going to factor in that you can use Holy Bolts, even though this ladder leaderboard doesn't let you use it. And don't worry, you're not going to get banned in the game if you use this. It's just for their little like niche leaderboard system that they have, they're making it so you cannot use this because again, it's kind of technically bugged. But don't worry, you're not going to get banned if you use it. Use it. It's part of the season. It definitely should be in your build. If you're trying to push the highest one for the sake of doing it, then by all means use this. It's one of the best overpowered things in the game. But for their leaderboard, it doesn't apply. So just again, take that as a little note over here. So as far as it goes, there's only one real class that is super far behind. And remember, every 10 is about twice the difficulty in terms of like how much damage you need to output or how much survivability you may need because, well, these bosses at the very end of the pit, I'm just doing some speed runs here, but as you push towards like the higher end, things actually become quite difficult. Now, as far as it goes, I'm going to go and mention the builds too because this kind of ties into it, and this video is not going to go over like a complete build guide for each one, but I'm going to briefly mention it, and I've got tons of videos that go over certain builds here because things have been updated. So for starters, the Barbarian is really good with specifically so many builds actually. You can run a Bash Barbarian, you can do Thorns, you can do a Bleed Barbarian, there's actually another Earthquake variant of the Dust Devils. There's so many builds for the Barbarian, and it is definitely on the highest end of the spectrum when we look at the list over here. Definitely at the high end. Now, as far as it goes with the Rogue, you're really looking at specifically the Heartseeker build. There's a few pen shot builds, but primarily it is going to be the Heartseeker, which is a basic attack. And then for the Sorceress over here, we also have one of the highest clears at the moment with the Sorceress, but I'm going to warn you guys, this is not a build for every single person. It is basically a basic attack build, and it's really hard to get up and running because you need a lot of things absolutely perfect. It's going to be a Firewall Firebolt Sorceress, and that is going to be the top tier build for the Sorceress. And then for the Necromancer, it is a lot of different versions of the Summon Necromancer, the pet Necromancer. So if you want to play the Shadow Mages or Golem or some sort of Shadow Minion build, that is going to be super good. Now, the last class, unfortunately, is going to be miles behind. And while it still can perform quite good, again, in open world and stuff, there's lots of different builds for the Druid, it is a huge step down if you look at the leaderboard. Again, being 10 tiers down for the most part between this class and a lot of the other ones. Again, Necromancer is kind of a special one because it technically has way higher clears, but it's using Holy Bolt, which doesn't apply. That's why I said take this with a grain of salt. But the Druid is still way farther behind than any of the other classes when we look at the tier list. So it's basically half the stats in terms of, it's mainly a survivability problem, honestly, with the Druid. And if you want to run the best Druid build, it's a basic attack build, and I'm going to be honest, most people will probably not be interested in playing it. So again, this is for the people that want to push the highest in the pit. That's my recommendation. That's the tier list for that. Now, let's go ahead and get into the other tier list, which is, I think, what most people want to go ahead and actually check out. Because while I mentioned right here that the Firebolt Sorceress is one of the top tier builds, I'm going to be honest, most people will not have a fun time playing it. And that is kind of subjective, but it's because it requires so much to invest in to even get it up and running, because if you're not immortal that one split second and you're dead, well, then you're just going to be like, well, I wasted my time making this build. So this is going to be from the 99% of the player base, what is the best class for you to play? And I want to go ahead and start off with not really considering too much in the leveling process, because leveling is actually much faster. But if you specifically get some tempers, your build is just going to become up online, and you're just going to be dominating content. For the most part, the Heartseeker Rogue, and I've played right now, we're 4 out of 5 in terms of all the classes, leveling them up in this season, and Rogue is absolutely amazing. You literally get that temper for Heartseeker, and you just hold that button down, and if you happen to have Moonrise, Expectant, as well as the Rapid aspect, you're going to be shooting super fast, and it auto-aims, and especially if you're playing on controller, it aim assists, and it just deletes everything. It is by far one of the best classes for people to go ahead and start off with, and at the very end. Again, it's a really good build, and it doesn't require too much time investment. Now, next up, the Bash Barbarian is another class that I cannot recommend more. It feels so good, especially if you play my Charge variant for the speedrunning pits. Oh my gosh, this build is amazing. I'll link, again, a bunch of videos down below as well that have some build guides if you do want some build guides. But as far as the Bash Barbarian, again, it's kind of like the Rogue. You start getting those temper recipes, and you just start bashing away. Your damage is just crazy high, and you're just going to be deleting content. You could do Sigil 100s when you're like about level 70, super smooth with missing glyphs and stuff. This build is so good. And if you happen to get Razor Plate, you can just walk around. The Barbarian's just simply so strong because you have 4 weapons, and with the new tempering system, you basically get way more than any of the other classes. And this is one of the ones that I definitely recommend if you've never played Diablo. What's the easiest casual friendly class? And that's Necromancer, man. The Necromancer with the summons, you feel incredibly powerful. Again, super fast, and because it's part of the seasonal journey, you can actually get a bunch of the aspects guaranteed. It's one of the easiest classes to actually start off with this season, because you don't have to randomly get something. With the Barbarian, you need to randomly get the temper. With the Rogue, you need to randomly get that temper. And well, I would say that's not too difficult as long as you've got, like, 10 hours to spend into the game. Not saying it takes 10 hours to get, but most people will spend 10 plus hours in the entirety of the season. You're going to be able to get the tempering recipe. It's going to be no problem. But the Necromancer gets it guaranteed. You get all of the aspects. So you're going to be, again, flying through content. And as a beginner player, this is the #1 class I can recommend. Now, as far as the Druid goes, I would say it is relatively difficult for me to recommend the class, and that is because, as far as I'm aware of, the brand new Boulder thing that just got updated isn't going to be an S tier best class, and that is something that just got updated, and that's old. The best build is actually going to be the Tornadoes, so if you don't really like playing the Tornado build, I can't really recommend the Druid, and especially from the casual standpoint, as well as just the overall feel of the Windshear Druid, which, as far as right now, it is the top tier build in terms of pit pushing. It's a basic attack build. The clear is just not on the same level as Tornado, but Tornado isn't the best build for the Druid in terms of pushing. I can't really recommend the Druid too much for most of the players. While it still has stronger builds, it's not the easiest to get going because the brand new stuff for this season, well, it's for Landslide, and I haven't seen anyone really play around with a brand new Landslide ring. And the other thing that you can get that's a brand new unique is mainly for specifically just adding some damage. It doesn't really change up or add newer content to the game, whereas Bash is brand new, Heartseeker's brand new, the brand new minions, because they're just way overtuned, is really powerful. As far as the Sorceress goes, though, I mean, you have the Frozen Orb Sorc, and that is kind of fun, but I feel like it really does lack the damage. If you've ever played the Frozen Orb build, which I'm showing right here, it just really lacks boss damage. Originally, I was really recommending the Sorceress for everyone to start off with, but things have actually changed. Back when I made my original tier list, the Frosty Strides absolutely deleted the entire game. I mean, you could do Pit 200 and just walk through the whole thing. You had the fastest time, you had Immortality, it was 100% like an SS tier plus, nothing was stopping because it was the fastest build and it had Immortality. There was nothing that was touching it. They had since buffed the HP of the monsters, and on top of that, they also nerfed the hectic aspects, so it was a lot harder to get Immortality. But the Frozen Orb is actually a pretty fun build to play for open world content, and if you're doing pits up to 80, it is pretty good. But if you want to play in the high tier one, you do need to, again, play the Firewall, Firebolt, which makes you have to cast a Firewall, and then you're shooting out something, and it does kind of have some weird / bugged interaction, I believe, at the moment, with the highest clear on the pit. But to be fair, a lot of these builds, they have a bug in it as well. That's just how Diablo 4 is. Like, if you look at the Rogue or Bash Barbarian, it was supposed to be additive and then move it to multiplicative. Then everyone complained, and then hey guys, oh sorry, just kidding, we deleted the post. It's now just not even on the updates. So as far as it goes, it's really hard to go ahead and make a tier list in the preseason, but honestly in the preseason, a lot of people didn't expect all of these bugs to go on, and things got heavily nerfed. So if I was to say where I would put on the tier list here in terms of what I would recommend here, that's probably what I would recommend. And the Sorceress or the Druid, they're not bad classes. Again, if you're just interested in doing open world content, play the class that you want. You're gonna have a great time. But as far as in the high tier pushing, it definitely is a lot different in terms of what I could recommend for 99% of the player base, because playing the, again, Immortality one requires so dang much, and to get even the Windshear Druid to the same level that you need to in order to do these higher pit pushes, yeah, it is very, very difficult. I mean, even right now, Tornado, Windshear are the top tier builds, and Tornado is old, and then Windshear technically is new, but it's not what I would consider, you know, in the best category. I mean, if you just look at the gameplay, you'll see a pretty big night and day difference between some of the other classes that I can recommend. So here's the recommendation tier list, and then here is the high tier in terms of the pit, and then for your casual, there's 3 tier lists all in one video. Hopefully this gave you guys an idea on maybe what you want to play, and I do have gameplay of a lot of the other stuff. If you're interested in you know, what's the best build for leveling, honestly that's kind of up to you because that's more in the subjective category, but objectively you get everything with the Necromancer. That's why I highly recommended it for a beginner. So if you're brand new to Diablo, start the Necromancer, Barbarian, or Rogue. You're gonna have a blast playing it, and in the Endgame you have some of the top tier stuff to work around with too, where it's not really that hard, because again, Sorceress is really hard to build, and I have to stress that if you want to go and be on the top of the leaderboards, but most people are interested in doing that anyway. So there's my recommendation. That's gonna wrap things up. If you guys felt like I missed on anything, definitely let me know down below. But if you enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. If you're new here, hit subscribe, turn that bell if you'd like to see more content, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. And check the pinned comment, there's a lot of other cool builds. I don't always consider the high tier pit the only metric for fun, because Ice Shards is absolutely a blast to play this season as well with the brand new buffs. But take care, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.